I've got 7 years in Minnesota.
Pardon?
I've got 7 years in Minnesota.
But, is it a fact, now, they've got a tonnage tax up there too, haven't they? And is that, you people against that tonnage tax, I understand?
The tonnage tax, the reason that the tonnage tax is of concern is Wisconsin's got a better tax, we think, than Minnesota in terms of structure. A net tax allows the tax to fluctuate so that when times are good, the money comes in pretty well. The gross tax levies the same tax whether the mine is profitable that year or not, and what it can do is take away the options to keep people employed that you have under a net tax. So the question is, if times are tough, you go back to 2008 when layoffs were happening, people were losing their jobs, manufacturing was slowing down, and the demand was dropping for iron. And you hit a time like that, would you rather have the revenue reduced because you had a net tax and the tax went down with the profits, or would you rather have revenue reduced because people were laid off because the mine wasn't making money? So in fact the purpose in Chapter 70, the Wisconsin mining tax, which was not changed, is to have a gradual, continuous extraction of metalliferous minerals, continued stable employment, and taxation according to ability to pay were the reasons that were put in the statute. And those are, so you also want to be able to keep the mine operating as long as you can and encourage investment in the mine. And the net tax does those things. What they've done in Minnesota actually is they've brought in elements of a net tax to recognize investment in things, because they're a plain gross tax doesn't have those elements that encourage people to continually invest in the business.
So you're saying is that instead of having a tonnage tax, the county would make more money by not having a tonnage tax?
It's hard to compare the amount of money between the two taxes. The net tax goes up to 15%.
I understand that.
Right.
I understand that. What you said, the county would put in more money by not having a tonnage tax?
No, I said that the employment would remain, the options to keep employment stable are greater with the net tax than the tonnage tax. So if you took in the same, if you took in around the same amount of money between them, the gross tax might force the company to be unprofitable in tough times, where the net tax, it might still remain possible to keep the mine open and people working.
It's
So,
possible to keep it up.
well, I mean,
Who knows, yeah.
if that tax comes down and the rate goes down as the profitability drops,
Well,
they
if there
people
was
can can keep working. Whereas they might be laid off at a mine that's taxed on a gross basis. On the revenue side, there are several sources of revenue that will be coming in initially. Some as windfall when the land is taken out from the mining company, taken out of the managed forest land program. That'll result in, if it was today, we think it'll be about $75,000 to Iron County and 300,000 to the town of Anderson, which amounts to about $5,000 per resident of the town of Anderson. That would be a windfall because when land's in the managed forest, the property, we have to pay the back taxes on that essentially. If you run that forward a few more years to actual operations, those numbers grow. Then you also have the fees that are paid, the money that's paid out of the gross receipts tax and things like that.
The construction fee
And-
is paid.
And a construction fee.
There's a construction fee that's paid once the permit is issued before you start construction of another. Currently, that's about $200,000 to the county.
To the county,
Yes.
to help with the county's infrastructure,
Well, it's for the county.
for the county, however.
All right, size.
Bill, you got anything?
I have one question, Mr. Situate, about
tonnage tax that Minnesota uses for compensation in lieu of net proceeds tax. The question was, did G-Tax oppose this provision?
The tonnage tax?
Right.
You mean in the bill legislation?
I think what you gotta look at in Minnesota is it took 15 years to fine tune that tonnage tax.
And actually, Minnesota's tonnage tax, it's a difficult question because the tonnage tax in Minnesota was never proposed in Wisconsin.
Right.
Because Minnesota exempts the initial years, from the tonnage tax.
And the question,
In order to
the
encourage you
decision
to-
had was
Yeah.
if you, G-Tax opposed that provision.
I'm saying there wasn't a tonnage tax, there wasn't the Minnesota tonnage tax proposed in Wisconsin. There was a tonnage tax proposed in Wisconsin, and
yes,
we
we
did oppose
opposed
it
that, yeah.
because it causes economic volatility, with employment in the operation of the mine.